So welcome again, everybody, to Ham Radio Perspectives. My name is Quinn, and I am K8QS.
I am Tom, and I am WA9TDD.
Yeah, TDD. That's one of those where you almost have to use the phonetics on the air, you know?
Right. Tango, Delta, Delta.
There you go, buddy. Okay, so we are here to talk with you about, to serve you in terms of ham radio accessories. Now, people define what an accessory is differently. We're not going to get into all of that, but these are the 5 that we think are most essential, and we want to give you some tips on picking them and, in some cases, using them. The 5 essential accessories. Go for it, Tom.
Okay, well, the first essential, almost primary thing you need for a ham radio is a high-quality power supply. And most ham stations require an external 13.8-volt DC power supply. And it's essential because you need a stable, clean current to transmit it. A cheap power supply can then produce RF noise or hum into your signal, birdies and trash. If you're getting a lot of noise, try putting the rig on a battery just to receive. That'll tell you a lot about your power supply. Well, what do I look for in a power supply? Well, you need a power supply that can handle at least 20 to 30 amps, for a standard 100-watt radio. A linear power supplies are traditionally quieter.
Yeah, say what linear is, Tom.
Okay, linear is... You take your input voltage, take your input AC voltage, you run it through a series of filters, a transformer, step-down transformer, and it comes out as a clean voltage current. Usable.
Yeah, big honking transformer.
Big honking transformer.
They're heavy.
A switching supply is all solid state. And sometimes they're just a mess. There's some that are actually quality built. You got to pay a bit for it, but they're actually a lot quieter than your standard, El Cheapo power supply. Good ones are from like Astron or Samlex. They're very popular and they're small and they're efficient. On a side note, a very good power supply would be to get yourself a 100 amp or so amp hour battery and a charger. Not only will you have a good, stable, clean power supply, but in case you lose power at home, you've got an emergency backup system. What do you think, Quinn?
Yeah, I agree completely, Tom. In fact, I have one here, and I use it both when the power goes out to power a number of things, but I also use it to help when I'm tracking down interference that I'm getting. So I can turn off all of the circuit breakers in the house here or the main switch outside, and then put the rig on the battery just to make sure that none of the noise is coming from my own place. I agree with you on the quality. I have found the quality of the cheaper, small, lightweight switching supplies is a bit of a problem. I own 2 of them. Both of them produce birdies. These beep, you're tuning up and down the band, beep, 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 and they have some hash. And that hash will change a little bit in frequency, but it can cover wide swaths of the band. So one thing that I recommend, Tom, see what you think about this, is if you're in the market and you're going to get a small switching supply, first check out what the reviews are of it on eHam, because you'll find out right away whether or not it's got a problem. What do you think?
That would be a good place to start. The other thought would be to buy it from a reputable vendor.
Oh, yeah.
That allows you returns. That way you can receive it, try it. If it makes a lot of noise, put it back in the box and send it back, get your money back.
Yeah, and the reputable ones, like a Gigaparts or a DX Engineering or MTS
Right.
or whatever, they will usually tell you on the phone their experiences with the best ones, and some of them have reviews on their website as well. So power supply is critical. Oh, one thing on the amperage, Tom, I had one of my power supplies was a linear 20 amp, and I bought a used Kenwood TS 570. And whenever I would go to CW at full power with that 570, the amp would shut down to protect itself. So it couldn't, it took a little more. It took like 22 amps to run that 570 on CW at full power. So look at what your rig specs are when you get the amplifier. If you want to spend a little bit of money and get one that'll work with a number of things added to it as an accessory, you can get maybe a 40 amp or a 50 amp. Okay, so number two, the second essential radio accessory for us hams is a really good SWR, or maybe SWR and power meter. Now, SWR, so much confusion out there. We should do a whole video sometime on SWR. To some extent, SWR doesn't prove a lot, because you can have a good SWR, which means supposedly that you are matched well to your antenna with your power, your signal. You're matched well. The length and the frequency that your antenna is working at and the frequency that you're operating on are together. You can have that and not get out well. So SWR does not mean that your antenna is going to work well. But if you've got a lousy SWR, you could be in deep trouble. On another video, Tom, you and I just talked about in the early days when we were on and we didn't have SWR bridges. And then we finally got SWR meters or bridges and found out that we were so mismatched with our antennas that we had more power coming back down from the antenna or back down the feed line than we had going out. I've tried to explain SWR to people in a more technical way, and they get lost quickly. But it just means that you want to make sure that your antenna and feed line are resonant on the frequencies that you're going to be operating. And of course, what an antenna tuner allows you to do is to have a broader range of frequencies, because you can put a little circuit in there to adjust between your rig and the antenna. And again, we'll do another video just on antenna tuners, and probably a little bit on some of the newer antenna tuners and what you can do with those. Now, the SWR is important, and the whether or not you need an SWR that's accurate with respect to power is a different issue. It's not so easy to get an accurate power assessment, and you may have on a cheap meter, it may say you have 70 watts going out and you actually only have 60, or you have 80 or something. Don't worry too much about that. Power meter is a really good one that can be really expensive. So the SWR is more important than knowing your exact power going out. A little tip on this: if you do want to go with some external meter rather than the SWR meter that you have in the rig, do get a quality one. And that also allows you to place it in different places. You can put it right behind the rig. You can put it further down the line somewhere. You can even measure at the antenna with it. So it's kind of fun. But you can spend $1,000 on a really good SWR bridge and a power meter and the like. But if it's $20 that you're going to get one, $25, don't go there. And again, check out the reviews on eHam.
Okay, number three, the third most essential radio accessory, believe it or not, is a dummy load. And what a dummy load does, it's a device that acts like a fake antenna, but it's a perfectly matched 50 ohm fake antenna. And it absorbs your radio signal without actually radiating it into the air. Now, why is it essential? Because it allows you to test the radio's power output and performance without mistakenly having a high SWR or causing interference with other operations. It's the first tool you'll reach for when you need to figure out if there's a problem with your radio or your antenna.
Yeah, it's just essential. In the old days, we talked about, Tom, we used to just use light bulbs, tuning up the light bulb, and the light bulb was not a 50 ohm thing. So it was not essential, but you could tell if you had power going out by how well the light bulb glowed, and then you could you could tweak your manually tuned transmitter to maximize the light of the light bulb. Not a great dummy load. And by the way, you don't need to get a dummy load for super duper power, because you're just checking to make sure that everything is okay. Copacetic, as my old man used to say, everything's copacetic with low power, because if everything's working well on low power, it's probably going to work well on high power. Do you agree with that, Tom?
I agree indeed. One of the best old dummy loads you could get is one of the old Heathkit Cantennas, which is a 50 ohm resistor and a steel gallon can of probably PCB oil. But they were fantastic, and you can still get them.
Yeah, and there are all kinds of dummy loads out there, but be sure to get one and to use it. And you might need it too for tuning up, to tune up to get close to the frequency of the antenna before you actually tune up on the antenna as well. Okay, so the number 4, the fourth essential ham radio accessory is, Tom, I know there's going to be some people that don't think this should be essential, but I'm going to say it is a great performing audio speaker. Okay, so we buy these ham rigs now that are small. They're much miniature compared to what rigs used to be, and they come with small, cheap audio speakers. They sound tinny. They don't have much frequency range. Often the speaker is put either on the side or on the top of the unit. And then if you have your rig back in with a shelf above it, the sound is kind of bouncing around in there before it gets out to you. Even when I got the IC 7300, when it first came out, Tom, right away I knew people were talking about how great the audio sound was on it. I knew right away this is not going to work. So I plugged it into one of my old Radio Shack speakers meant for stereo, a heavy weighted magnet in it. And boy, things sounded so much better. And that's the way I run it. So don't use a chintzy one. Chintzy ones, in my view, are not worth it. Now, Tom, your hearing is not as good as mine because you've got some hearing issues going on. What are your thoughts about the speaker?
My thoughts are, I use headphones. My hearing is so impaired that it really doesn't make any difference what the speaker does. I mean, I have to have that direct connectivity, whether it's through Bluetooth or wired in headphones. So speakers for me are a non-issue.
All right, that's good. And we're talking here about how fatiguing it can be to listen to a poor quality sound. And these are really good headphones that I'm using, these Audio-Technica, because the quality of the sound is important to me too, even though my ears are quite good. So, Tom, hit us with number 5.
Okay, number 5. The fifth and most essential radio accessory, and probably the most easily overlooked and frequently overlooked, is high-quality coax cable and the connectors. The cables, the feed line connecting a radio to the antenna is just as important as the antenna itself. As a matter of fact, it's essentially a part of the antenna. And low quality or thin cable like RG58, which is nice, thin, it's bendable, it goes through walls well, but you can lose a significant part of the signal as heat before it even reaches the antenna, especially on the higher frequencies and particularly on VHF, UHF. So what do you look for? Well, in most home shacks, you want to look for RG213 or LMR 400. Those are the gold standards of minimizing signal loss over longer distances. 213 tends to get waterlogged. Some 400s are better to work with, more flexible. But cheap connectors, no matter what kind of coax cable you use, corrode. And most of them, the cheap ones, don't solder well. The gold standard for connectors are amphenol. Anything else may have a very thin silver coating on it. They may just have a tin solder coating on it. And if you're taking heavy cable and soldering anything other than the center pin, if you're going to solder the shield to the connector. They're just not going to solder well and usually end up with a cold joint.
Boy, that is great advice, Tom. I don't know how many sections of 213 I've had to throw out because the impedance started changing. My SWR was changing, and I found out that water was getting in up at the antenna, even though I had it solidly wrapped and had that real mucky stuff on there, like putty to try to keep it out. So I stay away from 213, even though it's good coax. And I do like 400 a lot, but I have given up on getting anything but the real flexible LMR 400 because some of that stuff is so hard to bend it and to get it to go where you want to go. And so it's a pain in the rear. So that's all good advice. And on the cheap connectors, be careful if you're at a Hamfest and you're buying connectors and you're going to one of these dealers that has all kinds of connectors out there. If the price looks like it's too good to be true for a little 90-degree turn in an SO239 or something, it is too good to be true. You have to pay a little bit to get decent quality connectors, but it's well worth it. So these are 5 what we consider to be essential accessories, and we explained a little bit about each one. We may do some future videos looking more at just one or more of these, depending on the feedback we get. We hope this has been helpful. This is Ham Radio Perspectives. I'm Quinn, K8QS.
And I'm Tom, W89TDD.
Great. Please subscribe, everybody. We'd love to have you view more of our videos and give us some feedback down below. 73, everybody.